Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. And today our topic is single-family investing options.
Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast with Scott Whitwam, your blueprint to financial abundance. Settle in as we explore the mindset and methods for wealth building through real estate.
Welcome back. I'm Scott Whitwam, and I'm glad you joined me for our topic, single-family investing options. Three most common single-family investing options is what we're going to be talking about today. And so get ready as we take on number one, which is our buy and hold option. Buy and hold is basically what it sounds like. You're going to go out and you're going to find a single-family residence property. And remember, those can be condos, those can be townhomes, those can be a house, they can be a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. Those all qualify as some single-family residence properties. The reason why up to fourplex, because VA and FHA both offer programs, government-backed programs, where you can buy one of those properties and you can live in one of the units and finance the whole thing and treat the other units as income producing towards your loan qualification. Same thing with a duplex. You can use the other half, the rent from the other half, to help qualify for the product. So what we want to talk about in buy and hold is the acquisition of these properties and how it benefits you, or the risks involved in owning a buy and hold property. And there are many different ways that you can acquire buy and hold properties. You can use traditional funding. I just talked about VA and FHA. They have investor programs where you can live in one of the units and buy, whether duplex, triplex, or quadplex property, and utilize the rents on those. You can also acquire through private funding. You can acquire a property. So let's just say that you were going to buy a single-family residence and have it as a rental home. You can go down to your local credit union, down to your local bank. You can apply for an investor loan. They're going to typically require 20 to 25% down on that property, and you can acquire it and take ownership of it as an investment property. You can also use hard money, and you can also use private funds in order to acquire those properties. Most of those are not long-term financing options, but they give you the ability to acquire the property, and then you can refinance out into some traditional type financing with one of those. This is a good model. Buy and hold is a good model for long-term wealth building. And why do I say it's a good model for long-term wealth building? Because once you acquire the property, you're going to put a tenant in it. You're going to rent it out to somebody. Those renters are going to be making payments every month towards your mortgage. And so they're going to be paying off your mortgage for you while you are building equity as the value of the property goes up. And at some point, when the property is paid off, all of those rents are going to be 100% towards your income. So it's about building wealth into the future, the long term. You know, if you have a 30-year mortgage, 30 years down the road, it gets paid off, or shorter if you're applying some of the principal to it, and then all of those rents become income to you. So it's a way to build long-term wealth. Obviously, if you start with one, there's going to have a certain percentage of impact on your wealth situation, but there's a multiplier effect as you begin to acquire more and more of these properties. But buy and hold is more of a long-term venture, but it does produce what we call passive income, or a steady cash flow, because a flow of money begins to come in month after month, and you're going to be able then to use that cash flow in order to apply for your next investor loan, to buy your next property, or for living on. I have an investor who retired from on the East Coast as a CPA, came out here, started a small accounting firm, and I helped him buy about 10 investment properties that were buy and hold. And about 7 years later, he and his wife both retired, and now they live off of the income from those investments, that passive income. So now they don't have to work anymore. They don't have to go get up and be in the office on Monday anymore, but that passive income continues to fund their income. So there are some other benefits like tax benefits. Tax benefits are really big in the buy and hold arena. And the reason is because the government gives you the ability to write some of these expenses off of the home. So, this would be another one of the pros. So again, the first pro is long-term. The second pro is steady cash flow. And the third one would be tax benefits. But you're going to get to write expenses off related to the house. So when you acquire a property, you're going to get to write off all your closing costs. But then let's say that you need to go in and do repairs on this property. You're going to get to write off the new carpet, the new paint, the new appliances that you install in the home. You get to write all of that off. And then you get this really neat tax benefit called depreciation. A residential property can be depreciated over 27 and a half years. So what does that mean? That means you take the value of the property, let's just say it was $275,000, and every year you get to write off 27.5% of that, or in this case, you get to write off $10,000 a year over the period of those 27 and a half years, and you depreciate out the whole property. It's a tax write-off that you get. Now, what it does is it increases the basis or the amount of blue sky or the amount of profit that you have in the house if you go to sell it, but it limits your tax. So if you're making $9,000 a month in rental income and you can write off $10,000, or you're making $9,000 a year in rental income, you can write off $10,000 a year in depreciation. You've got $9,000 that has come in, but it's not taxable. And I advise you to obviously consult with a tax consultant with regards to how this affects in your own tax situation. But depreciation is an awesome thing that you can depreciate and basically defer the income that you're getting now. In addition to depreciation and the benefits of being able to depreciate your investment property, the other thing is you get an interest deduction. So if you're finance and leverage this property, you get to write off all of the interest that you're paying. I know with your own personal property, you get to do that. But on the investment property, you get to do that. So you get to deduct the interest from the payments being made. So while your tenant is making your payments, you're getting the interest deduction. You're getting the property tax deduction. So there's some real big tax benefits, including depreciation, repairs, maintenance, interest, those type of things that make buy and hold a very attractive investing opportunity. The other thing is tax deference. What is tax deference? Well, what if you can defer some of your taxes on a property? So let's say that you've had this property for 10 years. You've been taking the depreciation on the property at $10,000 a year, like we talked about. You've been making, $9,000 a year in income off of it. Well, now you get 10 years out and you have $100,000 worth of depreciated equity in the property, plus the property, maybe let's just say the property's gone up $50,000. So now you've got $150,000 in equity in this property. Now, if you just sell it and put that money in your pocket, you're going to get hit with this thing called capital gains tax. But you could use a 1031 exchange and defer the taxes by selling that property, taking your $150,000 in profit, and plowing that into a different investment property, maybe a multifamily now, maybe into 2 other properties, and defer your profit and acquire more properties that can generate more income and give you more depreciation over the next 10 years. So there's tax deference, another big tax advantage. The fourth pro, I would say, with regards to buy and hold is value appreciation. Single-family residents in general have a tendency to have appreciation. Now, there are some markets that are purely income acquisitions, and there are some that are big appreciation markets. Most big cities or metropolitan areas are going to be appreciation markets, whether it's, we'll say, LA, San Francisco, Sacramento, Austin, Houston, Dallas, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Atlanta, Miami, Tallahassee, New York. So you get the idea. These big metro areas, typically properties in those areas are going to appreciate. Now, not all properties appreciate. Some of them just cash flow. And so sometimes we find Midwest properties, and this can be in any state, but typically in the rural areas of like Nebraska and Oklahoma, people will call me, man, I got this opportunity to buy 25 acres, 1,800 square foot house for $20,000, and the rents on it would be $1,500 or $1,600 a month. This is awesome. Well, that's great, because what you're going to be buying is simply that rental value, the cash flow on that rental value, because many of those areas have a very slow growth or appreciation. But value plays a big part. So if you're buying in a metro area, the appreciation can be rather large on your rental properties. So you got a tenant that's paying it off. You're deferring you're depreciating it. You're taking the tax advantages of it, and then when you get ready to sell it, you use a 1031 or some other deferral method, and you defer the taxes on it. And the appreciation market helps to grow your wealth. The other pro is it's a hedge against inflation, because typically real estate values outpace inflation. Even in slower markets, they have typically kept up with inflation, but they typically outpace inflation. So they're a hedge against inflation, which means that when you're buying in an appreciation market, you're going to gain more money or more value in the real estate than what the inflation rate is in the economy. And so it's a much better investment than putting cash into a savings account. So what are some of the cons or some of the drawbacks from buying a buy and hold property? First is they're not liquid. What does that mean? It means if you need to sell quick, it may not sell as fast as you need it to sell, especially if you're in some rural markets. Some of those are 6 months to a year, 18 months on average is to sell a home. But if you're in an appreciating market, like one of the big metro areas that I talked about, typically you can sell a home within 3 to 4 months, but they're not liquid. If you needed the money in 30 days, generally real estate is not where I would put my money so that I could get it out. You could put it into maybe stocks. You can typically liquidate those pretty quick, but you've got the risk of volatility. Savings account, you can typically get it out. CDs aren't good places because they're not liquid either. So, but real estate is not what we call a liquid asset. If you're in an appreciating market, you've got a much better opportunity of getting to that money quicker, though, than you do in some cash flow markets. The other con is market risk. Real estate has a tendency. It's overall, if you look all the way back, to the 1940s, real estate is always appreciated. It keeps going up. But there are some times where there's market stumbles, and we have some big drawbacks and some big pullbacks in price. And you could see property values drop 10, 15, 20%. In 2008, we saw property values drop 50%. So there are some market risks associated with holding on to properties, buying and holding them long term. But here's the good thing. If you get into a situation like that and you don't have to sell, if you can continue to rent the properties and you can keep it occupied and keep those type of things, you can avoid those because you can wait out the market volatility and take advantage when the market comes back. The other third drawback is ongoing responsibility. You've got to manage the property, you got to deal with repairs, you've got to deal with liability. Now you can hire a lot of this out. You can hire a property manager to help manage the property, but ultimately you're responsible. You can have the property manager make repairs on the property. You can set limits, tell them what things you have to prove, what things you don't. You can hand it all off to them, whatever you want to do. You can do the repairs yourself. You can tell the management company, hey, if a toilet's broken, I want to fix it, and you can go out and fix it. Maybe you have your own handyman, and you're like, just let me know, and I'll send my handyman out to make the repairs on the property. The other drawback in this area would be liability. You're going to have to keep the property insured. What if somebody has an accident on the property? What if your tenant has a dog and it bites somebody? You're going to have a rental agreement, and you're going to have all these things that are made to protect you. But we're a litigious society. that it's very likely that that somebody's going to sue them and sue you, and so there is some liability, but you can cover most of that liability or even all that liability with good insurance, a good umbrella policy, a good insurance policy on the property, and then a good umbrella policy to help protect your liability. Another drawback is potential vacancy and cash flow pauses. If you have a single property and it becomes vacant, all of a sudden you have no rent on it. If you have a fourplex and one of the units becomes empty, you still are generating 3/4 of the value that property had. So with single family residence, you can have sometimes pauses or with vacancies or slowdowns. And if you're in a tough rental market at the time that it happens, it may be tough to get somebody in it. You may have to take a little less money. You may end up having to come out of pocket for a short period of time in order to cover the differential between what you can rent it for and what your payments are. The fifth risk is bad tenants. And I've had a few of these in my time. I've had some bad tenants. I had a tenant that stole every fixture out of a house. They stole the stove, the dishwasher, the microwave. They stole every ceiling fan. They stole every light fixture in the house. They stole everything. And the problem is typically the people that are going to do these type of things, they have no credit, they have no money, so you really can't go after them and you can't recover your losses. So it is a risk. Fortunately, it has been, I've had a few of them, but it's been very small to the overall number of properties that we have and the amounts of good paying tenants we have. I've had good paying tenants that have rented for years, basically paid off the property and then wanted to buy the property, and I've sold it to them. So you can have bad tenants. It's something to be aware of. You just need to, I'd say, stay on top of things. In my case, this person that stole everything out of the house, they were in the process of moving out of the house after their lease ended. I had a $1,000 deposit, but when they moved out and I was going to meet them for the final walkthrough, for which they didn't show up, I went into the house and was amazed at the fact that everything was gone. So you certainly can run into that. But again, staying on top of things, checking rental histories and those type of things, you can minimize and limit that. And we've done very good over the years with being able to do that. You've been listening to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast, and I hope you have enjoyed this episode. I want to thank you for taking time to listening. And if you found this episode of real estate, single-family residence options interesting and helpful, please subscribe, leave us a review. And if you have any questions, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. You can always find the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. This is Scott Whitwam. Be sure to join me on our next episode of the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast, where we're wealth building through real estate.